Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, my name is Michelle, and here on this channel I do mommy videos and I also do a little bit of vlogging. So if those are videos you like to watch, and I'd love for you to consider hitting that red subscribe button so you can see every time I have a new video. Guys, whew, it is hot. I don't know if you guys can see, but I am like sweating. Like it is hot. It's so hot. Okay. Whew, it is hot. I just turned on the AC. It was off, but I just turned it on, and I'm upstairs filming, so of course like cool air hasn't gotten up here, so just, you know, bear with me in this heat. So today is like a mix of a tea talk, which I haven't done in a long time, and kind of like a tips video. It's just a little bit, it's a mishmash today. So, you know, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's chat a little bit. I have basically like iced tea because it is too hot to drink anything else right now. Otherwise, I'd literally be dying. But it's still in a mug, so it kind of counts. So today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about breastfeeding and also about weaning. So, just to kind of give you the update that Mia Rose has basically officially weaned. She does not breastfeed anymore. It's probably been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since she's last breastfed. And so I thought I'd kind of chat with you guys about it because it's an interesting time and it's definitely been an interesting journey for me. So I thought I'd give you some of my tips, some things that I've done that have worked for me and kind of aided, I guess, us to get into this place, and also just kind of share my feelings on it, my thoughts on it with you guys. Okay, so if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I've got a ton of notes on here because it's a lot to remember and it's a lot that's been going on. So I do have a breastfeeding chit chat and essentials video. I will link it up here, and I will also link it in the description box. But just to kind of give you an overview, I basically breastfed Mia straight from day one. Definitely had my struggles. The first 2 to 3 weeks were horrific, as in it hurt to breastfeed. I cried in the night. I cried all day whenever she wanted to feed. I felt guilty because I didn't want to do it, and there were so many times I told Huang, like, just go out and buy some formula. Like, it was rough. But once we kind of settled in, it just became like second nature. Like, she always had a really great latch. It just took my body that time to adjust, especially when she was cluster feeding. But once I adjusted, it was seamless. Like, it was perfect. We kind of got all the things that I needed, like a proper pillow and, you know, certain teas that would help me, the nipple cream, all those things that I talked about in that video kind of helped me. But once we got everything together, it was good. And honestly, it was a beautiful experience and so rewarding to know that I could provide her with something that she needed. Basically, it was all me. As she was exclusively breastfed, she would not take a bottle. Like, I can probably count on both hands the amount of times, you know, she took a bottle without crying, fussing, or fighting. I started pumping around 4 weeks, and that was just to have stored milk in case she went to my parents. But at the end of the day, like, she would refuse the milk and would just cry until I came back. So that didn't quite work, but so it was really just me exclusively breastfeeding her until she was about 5 months. And when she turned 5 months, I noticed she had a real interest in foods, and so I kind of started her with the baby cereal. And then 6 months, I introduced her to, you know, solids like purees and things like that. So of course, her breastfeeding decreased. Around when she turned 8 months, I think it was 8 or 9 months, that's when my TMI, my cycle came back. So that's how I knew that there was a significant decrease in how much she was breastfeeding, because my cycle just kind of came back, because it just was not, I wasn't breastfeeding as much as I was in the beginning. So there are a few different types of weaning, and so there is baby-led weaning. So of course you let your baby kind of dictate when they want to breastfeed, when they don't want to breastfeed, and you just go with the flow. There's mommy-led weaning, which is basically you decide when you want to start weaning, and you kind of start using, you know, different tips and tricks to kind of help baby wean. And then there's basically the half and half, so the mommy and baby-led weaning. So I think between the two of us, it kind of became a half and half of mommy and baby-led weaning. So I think that definitely worked for us. So definitely look into what works for you. Whatever works for you and your schedule and your family, that's the best thing to do. So when Mia turned 1, I knew she was going to be going to daycare. I was going back to work. So I started at about 10, 11 months giving her whole milk, and so that I could kind of prepare her, because I never had the intention of pumping while I was at work for her to have milk at daycare. The plan was to switch her over to whole milk, and then when she was with me, I would still breastfeed if she wanted to, because I thought that might be a time where she would want to wean, which wasn't at that time the case. So I basically started getting her used to it before I went back to work, here and there, letting her try it, taste it, this and that. And just before I went back to work, she basically started to take the milk a little bit. So I knew that she was gonna be okay. So when she went to daycare, she was basically eating every and anything, all foods, so it wasn't a problem. And she would only drink milk before it was time for nap at daycare. And she would still breastfeed. So I would breastfeed her first thing in the morning. She would, you know, drink milk at daycare, and then I would breastfeed her when she came home, when I brought her home from daycare, and then I would breastfeed her again before she went to bed. Just before I went back to work, I stopped the feeding that she did in the middle of the night. So probably, I would say about 10 months, I cut out that night feed. I just wouldn't go in, and I would just let her try and self-soothe herself back to sleep, or I would let my husband go in and kind of try and soothe her and put her back down, and then, you know, eventually she just wouldn't wake up, or she would put herself back to sleep. So I was able to cut out that feed that was in the middle of the night, and so I just was feeding her at that time 3 times a day. Eventually she got to the point where she didn't need that feed when we came right home from daycare. So I was just feeding her twice a day, and that was before, or when she woke up, and then before bed. On the weekends, she would want to breastfeed basically 4 times a day. When she woke up, before her nap, after her nap, and then bedtime. So that's kind of the schedule that we were doing. And of course, in the mix, she would get a cold here, or, you know, be teething there, and of course feedings would increase, but for the most part, that was our schedule. And I was willing to do it. I was willing to go until she was 2 years old, or I was pregnant again. So if I got pregnant before she turned 2, I would then say, okay, maybe now's the time to wean, or go straight until she turned 2. So I had all intentions to just kind of keep going, and my doctor had recommended that I at least get her through the winter months. So that was my goal. Get her through the winter, and we'll see what happens. So we did that, and of course now we're in the summer, and she's basically weaned herself. At around 14 months, I stopped offering her the breast as much, just because I wanted to see, you know, when does she really need it, and am I just giving it to her and she's just taking it out of comfort. So I wouldn't offer it, but if she wanted it, I would give it to her. So basically that's one of the tips that worked for me, which is the don't offer, but don't refuse. So don't offer them, because they will probably want it, but if they ask for it, you give it to them. So then you can kind of see how much your baby really does need to breastfeed. And at that time, when I wouldn't offer and wouldn't refuse, I could see that she didn't really breastfeed as much. And so basically I would shorten her feeds. I wouldn't let her feed for like half an hour. I would let her feed for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then I would put her to bed, or I would put her down to nap, whichever was the case. And then I also wouldn't feed her to sleep, so I wouldn't let her fall asleep on the boob, and I wouldn't on the breast. And I also wouldn't feed her in the same spot. So I wouldn't feed her like in the rocking chair in her room. I would feed her, you know, downstairs on the couch, the TV's on, so that she's knowing that this is just, she's just feeding, but it's not setting her up for like wanting that comfort all the time or making that connection that she should be sleeping. So I would just feed her, and then she would be off, and then she would, you know, go upstairs and put her to bed. Then what I started to do was to not breastfeed her upstairs. So I would breastfeed her on the couch, then she would play a little bit, and I would let my husband, Huang, would take her upstairs, read her a couple books, and then put her down to sleep. So she was still getting breastfed, but it wasn't connected with sleeping. It wasn't, I need to breastfeed in order to go to sleep, because I knew there were going to be times where she would be sleeping over at my parents' house, and, you know, I just wouldn't be there to breastfeed her, and I wasn't pumping anymore. So she kind of got used to it, that she didn't have to have that. Basically, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I tried to breastfeed her at night, and she wouldn't take it. She was like, no, 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 no. And she like ran away. She didn't want it. So then the next morning I tried, she didn't want it. And she had a few days where she was confused. Like she would lift up my shirt, and then I would offer it to her, and she would say, no, 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 no. And I put the shirt down, and then she would lift it again, and it would be the same thing. And I think she was just kind of confused, like she wanted the comfort, but she didn't want to feed. So I think that was a transition. I just gave her a lot of cuddles, a lot of hugs, lots of kisses, you know, and things like that to help that transition. And then, you know, I just stopped offering, and she's never asked since. So we've basically fully just been done with breastfeeding for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And yeah, it's just crazy that it's been such a long journey. I have been breastfeeding for 17 months. And I'm really happy. I basically feel so blessed to have been able to breastfeed her for that long. The fact that I know what a struggle it is for some people. I know it's a hard topic. It's a sensitive topic for moms out there. But I really do believe that, you know, fed is best. If your baby is fed, then that's the best thing for them, whether it's breast milk, it's formula, whatever it may be. But if your baby is fed and happy, that's the best thing. But I just felt so blessed that I could breastfeed, and I had that opportunity to bond with her and kind of had that experience. I mean, I feel like I've done it with her, and I would love to do it with all my children. But if I didn't, I wouldn't be brokenhearted, because I've had the experience and I've been able to do it. And I really am grateful that I was able to breastfeed for so long. I'm happy that she weaned on her own, because I was really worried about having to find a way to get her to not want to breastfeed, and what was I gonna do. And you know, I was just talking about it with a friend just like a couple weeks before, saying she's still breastfeeding, like I don't know if she's gonna wean, like, you know, what's gonna happen. And it just happened on her own. She just made that decision, and I think that was the best thing for us. I think this was the best way for me, for her, and for our family, because there wasn't any, you know, struggle. There wasn't any sadness of like, you know, I'm forcing her to do it. She's crying. She wants it. It wasn't like that at all. It just kind of, one day she wanted it and the next day she didn't. So I'm really grateful for that process. And I think because it happened that way, I feel more at peace. It was a natural decrease, a natural progression to get to this point. And so I feel like that helped me to not feel upset about it. I don't feel sad about it. I look back on it with fond memories of breastfeeding her, and I think that chapter just came to a close for both of us. And it is sad, because I know that means she's like not my little baby anymore, but I mean, she's now this amazing little toddler that is just so entertaining. So I don't know, I feel good about it. All good things at some point come to an end. And this was ours. I'm so excited that, like, I don't know, tea talks are kind of back on the menu. I don't know if they are or are not. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys like them, if you don't like them. You know, I don't want to do them too often, but whenever there's something like this that I just kind of want to share and kind of talk about, then I'd love to be able to do a tea talk. And I will see you guys in my next video. Love you guys. Bye.